Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you very much for joining. We wanted to seek the blessings of Radha Shyam Sundar, Radha Madhav, Krishna Balaram, Bal Gopal, Nasingdev Bhagwan, Shishi Gonitai, Srila Prabhupada, Guru Maharaj, and the assembled devotees. So we wanted to have a look at chapter 4, the Bhagavad Gita. We've had a overview of chapter 1, where Arjun displays his dismay at the thought of fighting his kinsman, and he, in the beginning of chapter 2, surrenders to Krishna, saying that this problem is bigger than him, and he wants guidance from Krishna. And immediately Krishna takes him onto the spiritual platform by explaining to him that he is not the body, he is the spirit soul living within the body. And the body is temporary, it will die, or it's already dead anyway. It's made up just of earth, water, fire, ether. But the soul is the driving force, and the soul can never be killed. Then he explains to Arjuna about his duty in this world as well as his spiritual duties. So both things are explained. And then Krishna explains what the activities are of a self-realized soul. Then in chapter 3, which is what we did on Friday, Lord Krishna describes karma yoga, where you do your duty without attachment to the fruits of that duty. And today, we're going to look at transcendental knowledge. The chapter is called Jnana Yoga. So a summary of this chapter. Spiritual knowledge is known as Shruti. In fact, there's two types of spiritual knowledge, Shruti and Smriti. Shruti, that which is heard. So this Shruti is very solid. It's the Vedas, basically. It's the Vedas. And Bhagavad Gita falls in this category of Shruti. In bygone ages, people would hear such knowledge, remember it, assimilate it, and perfectly communicate it to the next person without any adulteration. Of course, that's not the case anymore. That's why it's written down. Transcendental knowledge is this knowledge which outlines how one can establish their divine connection with God. A famous Vedic quote is, aim to see God through the ears rather than the eyes. Our eyes will deceive us. But actually, if you want to understand spiritual life, then it's through the ears. You can see through the ears, which is unusual. I suppose it's a bit like if it was a very dark night and a robber came into your house. You won't be able to see the robber, but you may be able to hear him. So hearing is more powerful than seeing, for example. The themes of this chapter, there's, as usual, a few themes that run through the chapter, which we will subdivide the chapter according to these themes. How transcendental knowledge is passed down, how it's given from one person to another, and its effect on the person, this transcendental knowledge. How the Lord reciprocates with everyone. He's not biased against anyone. We're also going to look at the different types of karma, action, forbidden action, and inaction. We're going to look at the importance of knowledge and taking shelter of a guru. So let's begin. Now, who'd like to read? Any volunteers, young volunteers, please, so that we get used to reading the Bhagavad Gita. Anybody like to read? Yes, Priyanjali.
Text 1. The personality of Godhead Lord Sri Krishna said, I instructed this
No,
imperishable
Priyanjali,
science of
we
yoga
can't make out what you're
to the
saying.
sun god Vishwan, and Vishwan instructed.
Yeah, your internet connection isn't strong. We can't make out what you're saying. Sorry, Riyaj?
Rajat, the voice is breaking.
Yeah, yeah. No, Priyanjali, maybe your mother can help get a better internet connection, huh? Anybody else would like to volunteer to read? You can unmute and read. Actually, I tell you who, I met this young man at Rath Yatra. Rushil, would you like to read?
Sure, sir. So which text are we going from?
Text 1 onwards.
The personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna said, I instructed this imperishable science of yoga to the sun god, Vivasvan, and Vivasvan instructed it to Manu, the father of mankind, and Manu turned in turn, instructed it to Ikshvaku. This supreme science was thus received through the chain of disciplic succession, and the saintly kings understood it in that way. But in course of time, the succession was broken, and therefore the science as it appears to be lost. That very ancient science of relationship with the Supreme is today told by me to you, because you are my devotee as well as my friend, and can therefore understand the transcendental mystery of this science. Arjuna said, the sun god Vivasvan is senior by birth to you. How am I to understand that in the beginning you instructed this science to him? The personality of Godhead said, many births both you and I have passed. I can remember all of them, but you cannot. O subduer of the enemy,
Keep going.
although I am unborn and my transcendental body never deteriorates. Sorry, just been changed quickly. Right. Although I'm unborn and my transcendental body never deteriorates, and although I'm the Lord of all living entities, I still appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form. Whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice, O descendant of Bharata, and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself, to deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to re-establish the principles of religion. I myself appear millennium after millennium. Prabhuji, someone's at my door. Can I just quickly answer that?
Oh, yes, yes. Somebody else can continue. Don't worry. Don't worry. Arav, would you like to read
Sure.
from text 9?
Okay. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attain my eternal abode. O
Arjun.
Arjun.
Keep reading.
Being freed of attachment, fear, and anger, being fully absorbed in me and taking refuge in me. Many, many persons in the past became purified by knowledge of me, and thus they all attained
Transcendental.
transcendental love for me.
Well done. Thank you very much. How old are you, Arav?
I'm 10.
Very good. Thank you so much.
You're
So,
welcome.
summary of verses 1 to 10. Actually, before we go to the summary, there's some incredible verses in here. Because Krishna is explaining to Arjun that he taught this science of yoga to Vivaswan. Now, Vivaswan is very, is old. He's the sun god, beginning of universe. So Arjun is confused. He said, hang on, how can you have taught Vivaswan? He's senior by birth to you. So then Supreme Lord explains, actually, we have both taken many births. I can remember all of them, but you can't remember any. And I, although I'm unborn, and my transcendental body never deteriorates. So this is the status of the Lord. His body is always spiritual. Our body is material at this moment in time because we're living in the material world. But the Lord's body is not like our body. He's just purely transcendental. And then there's a number of verses which are very, very important. This is one of them. Janma Karma Chame Devim. He is explaining that one who understands Krishna's nature and appearance and activities, rather, that person does not, upon leaving this body, take his birth again in this world. This is fundamentally important to understand the nature of Krishna's appearance and activity. So that's why we talk about Krishna a lot, what he does, how he's born, Sri Krishna Janmashtami. They're very important festivals. So let's do a summary. Just as every gadget comes with an instruction manual, this entire universe comes with guidelines which enlighten one about its purpose and function. Such guidelines are found in ancient scriptures which contain knowledge of divine origin imparted at the time of creation. So this knowledge given by Krishna through Vivasvan was at the time of creation. Krishna explains how this eternal educational system was originally set up by him. This system perpetuates in the universe through qualified and saintly persons who impart spiritual knowledge to the masses in a dynamic, relevant, and practical way. Thus, the material creation is essentially a university wherein we discover our relationship with God. It's because we've forgotten it. So this world is like is to re-educate ourselves about God. As the creator and maintainer, Krishna periodically appears in the world to re-inject spirituality, remove materialistic influences, and ensure the smooth functioning of the universe. Understanding Krishna is the secret to success. So, what is a lesson to take from this theme that we talked about? Right? As Krishna explains in the 9th text, that one who knows his activities and appearance goes back to the spiritual world. On this basis, we try to read a portion of the Krishna book by Srila Prabhupada regularly. This is a very powerful book. You can get it online. You can get it hardback as well, or softback in paperback. But this book, we should try to read on a regular basis because Krishna explains Krishna's activities, Krishna's appearance. And this is what it needs for us to get out of this material world and go back to the spiritual world. So let's carry on. Devina, would you like to read?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
As all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects, O son of Pratha. Men in this world desire success in fruitive activities, and therefore they worship the demigods. Quickly, of course. Men get results from fruitive work in this world. According to the 3 modes of material nature and the work associated with them, the 4 divisions of human society are created by me. And although I am the creator of this system, you should know that I am yet the non-doer, being unchangeable. There is no work that affects me, nor do I aspire for the fruits of action. One who understands this truth about me also does not become entangled in the fruitive reactions of work. All the liberated souls in ancient times acted with this understanding of my transcendental nature. Therefore, you should perform your duty, following in their footsteps.
Wonderful. Very confidently read, Devi.
Thank you.
Very good. It's a lot. Krishna said a lot in these 6 verses. Incredible amount of information in here. So let's just do a summary because he's given some information which can counteract our common misunderstandings. Okay, most people know something about religion, something about God, but their understanding can often be quite hazy and confused. However, when transcendental knowledge is received through the eternal educational system, one gains an accurate understanding. So sometimes somebody will tell you something, some perhaps some religious point, but actually it may not be accurate. So we have to be very careful where we hear about spirituality. In 3 verses, Krishna clears up 3 common misunderstandings of Sanatan Dharma or Eastern spirituality. So verse number 11 addresses the misconceptions that all spiritual paths lead to the same destination. Sometimes you will hear, oh, everything is one, everything is the same. Actually, it's not. Krishna explains that while there is unity in diversity, that's why there are so many routes, so many roads, so many paths in spirituality. There are also different gradations of spiritual elevation. Some take longer to reach him. So we should understand, if we're going to worship, as all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects. So we've got to be careful. If we are going to be worshipping like the devatas, for example, in order to get material success, that's a different path. Ultimately, Krishna is the one who's giving the devatas the material wealth to give to us, for example, if we're worshipping the devatas. But it's indirect worship of Krishna. That's why he even says, everyone follows my path in all respects, because ultimately he is the source of all benedictions. But we have to understand the path may take a lot longer because we're taking a detour. Verse number 12 addresses the misconception that Eastern spiritual scriptures or the Vedic scriptures talk of polytheism, i.e., there are many gods and the worship of many gods. Now, Krishna re-emphasizes the monotheistic stance that there's only one God. There's only one God. What does that say? Verse number 12. It's effectively verse number 11. As they also know to me, I reward them accordingly. Effectively, and there's another place as well, he explains that actually there's only one God. That one God expands himself into many avatars, as well as his internal energy expands as Radharani. So there's there's the Krishna and there's the consort of Krishna as well, Radha Krishna. And also there are the devatas who are very powerful servants of the Lord. So actually, we can refer to the Vedic system as this is really quite a little complicated, but it explains it quite nicely. Multi-layered. There are many layers within Sanatana Dharma. So there are the devatas, the demigods, who are not supreme, but they've been given powers by the supreme. So that's multi-layered. Polymorphic means there are many. Good question about Lord Shiva. I'll just answer that in a minute. Polymorphic is there are many avatars, expansions of God. And by monotheism means that there's the divine couple, Radha, Krishna, Sita, Ram, Lakshmi, Narayan, like that. What is the position of Lord Shiva? Very good question. He's known as Mahadev. When Vishnu wants to touch this world, he becomes Shiva. Otherwise, the Lord has no connection with this world. Even when Krishna comes to this world, he brings a spiritual world with him. Everything is spiritual. He doesn't actually touch this material world. But when Lord Vishnu, Lord Krishna, wants to touch this world, get in direct contact with this world, he transforms as Shiva. So in one sense, there's no difference between Shiva and Vishnu. It's one and the same person. But at the same time, because he's in touch with this world, he becomes Shiva. A little different. And the example given in the scriptures, in the Srimad Bhagavad, in the Brahma Samhita, there's a verse which explains this. Yatha, I've forgotten the verse actually. But anyway, the verse basically says, when you add a curding agent to milk, it becomes yogurt. So when we add the material nature to the Lord, to Lord Vishnu, becomes Shiva. In one sense, milk and yogurt are the same. They're dairy products. So in one sense, Vishnu and Shiva are the same. They're supreme. But also milk and yogurt are different. So in the same way, Shiva and Vishnu is different. So Lord Shiva, if you notice also, he's usually seated in a meditative posture. He's a devotee actually of God. His Ishtadev is Sankarshan or Ramachandra. And he's regarded in the Srimad Bhagavad Puran as the greatest of all Vaishnavas. So Lord Shiva is a very, very important part of Sanatana Dharma. So it's very important to give him full respect. And his nature is such a sweet nature. If anybody somebody's been completely rejected by everybody, Lord Shiva is the one to give that person shelter. What a person, what a personality. It's one of the greatest personalities. So one should not feel that they have a right to disrespect Lord Shiva. He's got a very special position. He's got a special tattva. There's 3 tattvas. There's Vishnu tattva, Jiva tattva, and Shiva tattva. So the Jiva, that's us, living entities, we can never become Vishnu. We're always going to be Jiva. And similarly, we can never become Shiva tattva. So he's got a special category of his own. And he's very, very hard to understand, Lord Shiva. Very hard. But he's one of the greatest personalities. I hope that answers your question. If there's more, please, later on you can unmute and we can have a discussion. Verse number 13 addresses the concern that the caste system is unfair and exploitative. Krishna outlines the true criteria and purpose of such classification. So again, if we just have a very quick look at, he explains, according to the 3 modes of material nature and the work associated with him, the 4 divisions of human society are created by me. So he is the creator of the class or the caste system. We have to understand. It's an eternal position. And if we look at the system, the caste system was exploited so that some members of society were discriminated against. And that's not right. That's not good. That's not what was Krishna's intention. Unfortunately, men always make a mess of what is God's creation. But the caste system of Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra is required. And there's no society in the world, even the Russian classless society, still they have the professors and the learned personalities. Still they have the army people and the administrators. Still they have the business people and the workers. No society can do without them. Just like the body cannot do without, the head or the arms or the stomach or the leg. You need all of it to function as a body. So society needs all of the class system in order to function. And perhaps in the West, in this country, it's the best system for how the class system works. Because according to your nature, your level of ability, you are defined according to that, as opposed to your birth. If you're born a Brahmin, it doesn't mean you are a Brahmin. If you behave like a Brahmin, then you're a Brahmin. And vice versa for Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. So what's the lesson to learn? Krishna indicates that he reciprocates according to our commitment to him. So that was the 11th verse, right? That whatever we do, he will reciprocate. So we take one step towards him, he takes 10 steps towards us. So the lesson is, the more we connect with God, the more he connects with us. Very important. We got to connect. We got to take the first step, because we took this first step outside of the world, spiritual world. Now we need to take the first step towards him. So let's move on to the next one. And can I ask Sanvi, would you like to read?
Text 16. Even the intelligent are bewildered in determining what is action and what is inaction. Now I shall explain to you what action is, knowing which you'll be liberated from all misfortune. The intricacies of action are very hard to understand. Therefore, one should know properly what action is, what forbidden action is, and what inaction is. One who sees inaction in action and action in inaction is intelligent among men, and he is in the transcendental position, although engaged in all sorts of activities. One is understood to be in full knowledge, whose every endeavor is devoid of desire for sense gratification. He is said by sages to be a worker for whom the reactions of work have been burned up by the fire of perfect knowledge. Abandoning all attachment to the results of his activities, ever satisfied and independent, he performs no fruitive action, although engaged in all kinds of undertakings.
Carry on, but just before you do, this verse 417 is quite interesting. Krishna explains the intricacies of karma or action are very hard to understand. So we don't try to understand, why has this happened to me? Because it's very, very complicated. There are many reasons why something happens to us. And then this number 18 is very interesting, which we'll talk about when we do the summary. Seeing inaction in inaction and action in inaction. This sounds very complex. So sometimes that's why people say Gita is very hard to understand. But actually, it's quite easy when we look at the detail of this in a minute. Yeah, please carry on.
Such a man of understanding acts with mind and intelligence perfectly controlled, gives up all sense of proprietorship over his possessions, and acts only for the bare necessities of life. Thus working, he is not affected by sinful reactions. He who is satisfied with gain, which comes of its own accord, who is free from duality and does not envy, who is steady in both success and failure, is never entangled, although performing actions. The work of a man who is unattached to the modes of material nature and who is fully situated in transcendental knowledge merges entirely into the transcendence. A person who is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom because of his full contribution to spiritual activities, in which the consummation is absolute, and that which is offered is of the same spiritual nature.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for reading that nicely. So, summary of these verses, 9 odd verses. Karma means action, but it also refers to a universal form of a law of nature. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So bad karma, bad actions, sinful actions bring bad reactions and is thus obviously undesirable. And that is effectively our karma, vikarma. However, Krishna further explains that even good karma should be avoided, since it also binds one to material existence. So this might be a bit of a surprise. What do you mean? Good? You shouldn't do good things? Anyway, we'll talk about that in a minute. Beyond good and bad are activities performed on the spiritual level. That is action which yield no reaction and ultimately frees one from the anxieties and entanglements of this world. Such action is known as akarma. So let's have a look at this, especially that verse, action in action, inaction in action, and action in action. I'll give you an example of what this means. Say there's a policeman. Say there's a policeman who sees a robbery in action and he doesn't do anything. He doesn't act to stop the robbery from taking place. So that's inaction. That's inaction. But actually, he's going to get a punishment for that because he's not done his duty. So perhaps the police force may suspend him or sack him because he didn't do his job as a policeman. So by not acting, it isn't that he won't get any reaction. There is action in inaction. So he's going to get a reaction for not acting. And inaction in action, this is really, really interesting. We're acting, we're doing something, we're doing karma, but there's no reaction. This is a fantastic one. How is that possible? How is it possible to do something and yet have no reaction to it? So this is where we bring in this point here. Actions done on a spiritual level don't have a reaction. It's inaction in action. What does that mean? How do we act on a daily basis on this platform? Well, we can. We can. If we bring God into our life and put him in the center of our life, everything we do is for him and it becomes inaction. It becomes akarma. We're not incurring karma. Let me give you an example. I think we may have given this example before. Say you want to give food to somebody who needs food. That's, when we walk down the street in Croydon, in the High Street, in the Whitgift, we see people who are struggling in the way they're asking for food. And the natural tendency is to give food, right? We don't want to see anybody hungry. It's heartbreaking when that happens, right? So we can give them food. But if you just give them food, that's good karma. But that's gonna result in you receiving the reaction, a good reaction, but still a reaction. So you're gonna get that back. So you're gonna have to come back in this world to get that back. And that defeats the purpose of what we want to do. So we still give the food, so the action is still, but we give them prashad. What does prashad mean? For example, you can go to the market, get some fruit, you offer that fruit mentally to the Lord. My dear Lord, please accept this food. That becomes prashad. When you give prashad to somebody, there's no reaction because there's no material reaction because you've given them Lord's mercy. That's what prashad means, Lord's mercy. But what are you actually getting is you're actually performing an act on a spiritual level that's going to free us from this world. When we give somebody prashad, it's the same act as giving food, but one act is freeing us and the other act is binding us. So I hope that makes sense. It's quite a simple concept, but because it's out of our comfort zone, it takes a little time to digest and understand it. Often we may be at the receiving end of rough justice. So let's have a look at the lesson. And feel aggravated by other people's actions. This can make us angry. This has happened to every one of us, right? I didn't deserve that. Why did this person say that or do this to me? This injustice, however, is likely to do with our previous actions, perhaps from previous lives. So, how do we deal with it? Taking responsibility for our predicament, understanding that there is a reason for everything that happens, will make us less bitter and better able to cope. We never complain when good things happen to us. Unexpectedly good things happen. We never complain, right? But we always moan when something goes wrong. Or we think, why is this person, who's such a bad person, not receiving any punishment? Or we think, why is this person, who's such a nice person, getting such bad karma? Well, it's got to do with the past. We're seeing half the picture. We're seeing a little bit of the picture. It's like going into a movie halfway and you see a man being put in prison. And you think, oh, that's a bit unfair. But we didn't see the beginning of the movie to justify why he's put in the prison. So why do good things happen to bad people? Perhaps they've done something good in their previous life or previous years to deserve that. And it's not for us to judge. However, what we can do is if we're going through some reaction, maybe some ill health or some, challenging situations, we take responsibility in the sense that I'm not going to point the finger at my parents. I'm not going to point the finger at my children. I'm not going to point the finger at anybody else. I'm responsible. I'll take responsibility for my own predicament. That will make us very strong internally to deal with it. If we're always blaming others, that makes us very weak because we're always pointing the finger. But when we're pointing one finger, we have to remember 3 fingers are pointing straight back at us. So taking responsibility. Yes, I'm going through this hard challenge. I'll accept responsibility for it. I will accept that it is my own fault. Something I've done in the past, I don't know what, I may not know what, I may know what, but I will take responsibility. I will deal with it. I will do my very best to handle the situation with the Lord's mercy. So it's very important. Now there's an example. Oh, this is so just a summary. Karma, pious activities. Vikarma is sinful activities to be avoided because that will give us suffering in the future. Guaranteed. Akarma, which is activity, but it's not going to give a karmic reaction. Right? It'll actually take us to the spiritual world. So that's the difference between the 3. Karma is this ordinary activity which is going to give us pious reactions. Vikarma is sinful activity. Akarma is spiritual activity. So an example, Arthur Ashe. I don't know if any of you know who Arthur Ashe is, the younger generation, but he was the first Black person to win Wimbledon, the tennis. And now Wimbledon is actually going ahead at this moment in time. So it's very apt. He was legendary, right? He was one of the best tennis players in the world. He won Wimbledon, the first Black person to do. So he actually got attacked by cancer. So people often write to him, why does God have to select you for such a bad disease? So look at his reply, right? All over the world, 50 million children started playing tennis. 5 million learned to play tennis. 500,000 learned professional tennis. 50,000 come to the circuit, the tennis circuits around the world. 5,000 reach the Grand Slam, which is the place to get to. 50 reach Wimbledon. 4 reach the semi-final. 2 come to the finals. When I was holding a cup, I never asked God, why me? And today, in pain, I should not be asking God, why me? So this is very, very powerful to understand. This is taking responsibility. This is making you strong to deal with anything. So let's read the final bit now. Any volunteers to read? Otherwise, I'll pick on somebody. Davina, you've already read. I like your enthusiasm. How about Rohan? We haven't heard you today. Are you able to unmute? I know sometimes you can't.
Hare Krishna.
Oh, good. Go for it.
Some yogis perfectly worship the demigods by offering different sacrifices to them, and some offer sacrifices in the fire of the supreme Brahman. Some, the unadulterated brahmacharis, sacrifice the hearing process and the senses in the fire of mental control, and others, the regulated householders, sacrifice the objects of the senses in the fire of the senses. Others who are interested in achieving self-realization through control of the mind and not senses offer the functions of all these senses and of the life breath as oblations into the fire of the controlled mind. Having accepted strict vows, some become enlightened by sacrificing their possessions, and others by performing severe austerities, by practicing the yoga of eightfold mysticism, or by studying the Vedas to advance in transcendental knowledge. Still, others who are inclined to the process of breath restraint to remain in trance practice by offering the movement of the outgoing breath into the incoming, and the incoming breath into the outgoing, and thus at last remain in trance, stopping all breathing. Others, curtailing the eating process, offer the outgoing breath into itself as a sacrifice. All these performers who know the meaning of sacrifice become cleansed of sinful reactions, and having tasted the nectar of the results of sacrifices, they advance towards the supreme eternal atmosphere. O best of the Kuru dynasty, without sacrifice one can never live happily on this planet or in the next, or in this life. What then of the next? All these different types of sacrifice are approved by the Vedas, and all of them are born of different types of work. Knowing them as such, you will become liberated. O chastiser of the enemy, the sacrifice performed in knowledge is better than the mere sacrifice of material possessions. After all, O son of Pritha, all sacrifices of work culminate in transcendental knowledge.
Yeah, keep going. Or have we lost you?
Oh, just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. Having obtained real knowledge from a self-realized soul, you will never fail again into such illusion. For by this knowledge, you will see that all living beings are part of the Supreme, or in other words, that they are mine, that they are mine. Even if you are considered to be the most sinful of sinners, when you are situated in the boat of transcendental knowledge, you will be able to cross over the ocean of miseries. As a blazing fire turns firewood to ashes, O Arjuna, so does the fire of knowledge burn to ashes all reactions to material activities. In this world, there is nothing so sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge. Such knowledge is the mature fruit of all mysticism. One who has become accomplished in the practice of devotional service enjoys this knowledge within himself in due course of time.
Last bit.
A faithful man who is dedicated to transcendental knowledge and who subdues his senses is eligible to achieve such knowledge, and having achieved it, he quickly obtains the supreme spiritual peace. But ignorant and faithless persons who doubt the revealed scriptures do not attain God consciousness. They fall down. For the doubting soul, there is happiness neither in this world nor in the next. One who acts in devotional service, renouncing the fruits of his actions, and whose doubts have been destroyed by transcendental knowledge, is situated factually in the self. Thus, he is not bound by the reactions of work, O conqueror of riches. Therefore, the doubts which have arisen in your heart out of ignorance should be slashed by the weapon of knowledge. Armed with yoga, O Bharata, stand and fight.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for reading. Quite a lot of verses we read, all about how we can gain knowledge. And at the end, Krishna explains how any doubts that arise in our heart out of ignorance can be slashed by the weapon of knowledge. So, a lot of verses we covered there. In order to acquire, understand, and realize transcendental knowledge, one must make a sacrifice. Just like to study a profession, you have to put in the time and the effort. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to qualify in that profession. It's not that you just one day attend one lecture, read one book, and answer one question, and suddenly you have become a lawyer, doctor, dentist, etc. You've got to go through quite a process, make quite a sacrifice. In the same way, to attain and understand transcendental knowledge, sacrifice is required. Sacrifice helps refine one's character so one become eligible to achieve this knowledge, and the impact of transcendental knowledge is as follows. You become self-realized. You understand who you are. Hardly 99.99% of the world, or in fact, 99.9% of the world do not understand that we're not the body. Hardly anyone understands that we are the spirit soul that's driving the body. So the whole world is living under this massive illusion. So what does transcendental knowledge do? It gives us self-realization. Who are we? We understand who we are. We're the Atma. Even a sinner can cross beyond this ocean if one is on the boat of divine knowledge. So even a crazy person, once getting this knowledge of divinity, becomes enlightened. And last verse that we read, doubts will be slashed by the weapon of knowledge. So what's the lesson? One of the biggest sacrifices is to relinquish one's pride by humbly submitting oneself before the bona fide guru. Who's a guru? Is a teacher, teaching spiritual knowledge. By faithful service and sincere inquiry within such a relationship, the heart becomes fertile ground for spiritual knowledge to blossom. Now, in the Bhagavad Gita, we've only been through 4 chapters, but 3 times the importance of the guru is explained, right? There's a 3rd time the matter of guru is coming up. In the very first verse, Dhritarashtra takes shelter of Sanjay. Please tell me what is happening in the battle of Kurukshetra. He's taking shelter of Sanjay. He wants to know what's happening. In the 2nd chapter, 7th verse, Arjuna is saying to Krishna, my dear Lord, I really don't know what to do. Please guide me. And then Krishna himself, in the 34th verse of this chapter, is explaining, Tadvidi panipatena. He says to Arjuna, just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively. Render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. So the importance of the guru is stressed, and by Krishna himself. And he's the example as well. When he came to this world, he didn't need to take a guru. He is the guru of everyone. But still he went to Sandipani Muni ashram for 64 days and learnt so many different things. As Ramachandra came millions of years ago, he had Vashishta as guru, and later Vishwamitra. As Lord Chaitanya, he took Ishwarapuri as his guru. So Even the Lord, when he comes, he gives the example. Although he doesn't need to take a guru, he takes a guru. He takes shelter of a spiritual authority. So it's very important to find a spiritual authority to take shelter of. So chapter 4, Gyan Yoga, really important chapter, like they all are. But it's got a lot of incredible nectar in this chapter, which will make us very, very strong. So I wanted to ask if there's any questions. There is one in the chat I saw. 1 second. Oops. Can you do 2 karma at one time? Generally, they're mutually exclusive. You're either doing bad karma, good karma, or akarma. There's 3 types of karma. There can be a situation where one person does activity, for him it's good karma, but that same activity done by another person might be bad karma for that person. That's possible. That's possible. But otherwise, these are usually mutually exclusive. You're either doing good, bad, or akarma, spiritual karma. Anybody else? Any questions from the youngsters? Can we see if any youngsters have any questions? Or are you quite happy with what has been discussed? Any challenges? You're welcome to challenge what we have said. In fact, I'd like you to challenge it. Don't just accept everything blindly. If you don't understand something, question it. And you can question it in a nice way. So okay. Prabhupada?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
I'll ask the question in 1 minute, but just wanted to say thank you for sharing all lovely videos yesterday's program.
Thank you.
And I hope everything went very well.
It was good.
It did rain a little bit.
Oh, it rained, yeah.
Yeah.
It sort of interfered with our stage program, but it was okay. We still managed to do it.
Yeah, lovely dances from the ladies. And puja was done really good. I saw all the videos and pictures, which was very nice of you. The question is, when you said giving the food and give someone food, that is a karma.
It's good
Then
karma.
it's
Yes.
good karma, but you still come back.
To suffer to enjoy the consequences. Yes.
Yeah, but the second one you said, suppose like if you go in the supermarket, you're doing all your shopping there, and you think, oh, you want to buy something for the food bank, so you buy something for food bank, and then like biscuits or Weetabix or anything, tin food. But when you come out from the supermarket, whatever you bought for the food bank, you just put in there. So do we have to pray?
Yeah, you can still offer that food. Offer it to God. If you're buying a biscuits, just in your mind, offer it to God. My dear Lord, please accept this offering. I know this is not ideal way of offering it to you, but please, within my mind, I'm offering to you. Please accept this offering. Make it blessed food. Make it prashad. Yeah.
And then put it in the food
Then
bank.
you put it. That way,
Right.
you are not binding yourself to this world, but you are performing a spiritual act.
If you put it straight in there, that means you are binding.
That means you're going to have to come and enjoy that. Somebody will give you that in your next life or even this life. You'll have to come back to enjoy it.
And 2 weeks ago, I made a really silly mistake by myself. I mean, there was a girl standing outside Sainsbury, and every time I buy something for our children and just give it to her.
Mm.
But this 2 weeks ago, she said, "Oh, please give me some money. I will buy food for my children."
Yeah.
And I didn't have much cash on me. And I said, I'll look in my purse. I said, I'll go only £5. So she said, it's fine. And she took that £5.
But don't give
And
money, because
yeah,
you may spend that money on alcohol or cigarettes, then you haven't.
yeah, you are right. I was in the rush myself because I had to come back in the satsang. So what I did, I just gave her £5. And then I did my normal shopping as I was doing it. And all of a sudden I see her. And I said, "Oh, you were right." She said, "Yeah." But then I saw her in her hand this body spray, which I said, "What you doing with that?" "Oh, I'm buying for myself." You said, you said you was going to buy for the children. I'm looking for children, buying the food for children.
Yeah.
But I saw her literally buying that body
Yeah.
spray for herself. Then I told her, I next time not give you money.
Correct. And don't do that at all to anybody. In fact, give them something that they can eat, or fruit or
Yeah,
whatever.
fruit, yeah.
Yeah, no, don't worry. Lesson learned. It's okay.
Now carry
No
on,
problem.
carry on.
So
Okay.
there's a questions from Rushil.
Hare
So
Krishna,
was
Prabhuji. Hare
Shiva
Krishna.
a Vaishnav? Well, he's not in the past. Shiva is actually in the creation now, right? His job is, at the end of this creation, when it's the right time, he will destroy the creation so that it goes back into the body of Lord Vishnu, and then another cycle will start. In his, what is he? He is an incarnation of the Lord in charge of Tamogun, mode of darkness. It's not that he is in the mode of darkness, he's in charge of the mode of darkness. So he is one of the Gun avatars. Gun means quality. So he's in charge of the quality of ignorance. But at the same time, he is a Vaishnav. That's correct. He is regarded to be the greatest Vaishnav. He is the greatest devotee of Lord Vishnu, or Shankarshan. That's his Isht Dev is Shankarshan. When you're seeing him, he's meditating. What's he meditating on? He's meditating on Lord Shankarshan. So yes, Rushil, if that doesn't answer the question, please do unmute, and you're welcome. You're welcome to ask further questions. Happy for you to do that. But he's regarded as one of the greatest personalities. He's one of my favorite personalities because he's so kind to those who have nothing. He gives shelter. He's one of the most lovable persons. How can you not love Shiva? Because he's such a lovable person himself. He gives himself. Okay, Sanchi and Sanvi, why do we pray to God when our actions and karma decide our future and next life? Well, why do we pray to? Sometimes we're not aware of the karmas that are coming to us, the reactions that are coming to us, right? So we can pray to the Lord, my dear Lord, whatever is coming, I do understand it's as a result of my previous actions, but please don't let me forget you. Whatever reactions are coming, I can't stop. That's going to come. And if you want to stop them, that's fine. I'm not going to ask you to stop them. But let me just remember you, even whilst I'm going through any challenges in my life. Let me not forget you. Main reason to pray to God is to allow him to always remember him. When we remember God, we're actually engaged in bhakti. We're getting closer to God. And when we remember God in very challenging times or non-challenging times, it's only for our betterment. It's only for our good. But one more thing is, we should understand We can change our karmas. We can change our destiny. It's not that our future is written for us. Yes, to a degree, it may well be. Because of our previous karmas, the reactions will come. But it doesn't mean we can't alter our path, our journey, our destination. We can by changing our consciousness, by becoming how the best way to change our destiny is to become God conscious. Then we simply take shelter of the Supreme Lord and let Him be in charge of our lives. Basically, we take shelter of the Lord, and our problems become His problems. Although we don't want to give God problems, why would we want to give God problems? But you know, this world is a tough world. So now, A's iPad. Would you like to tell us who you are?
Hi, Prabhuji. My name is Shikhar.
Sorry?
My name is
Shikhar,
Shikhar.
Amita's son.
Yes.
Oh, Shikhar. Very good.
Hi. So I had two questions. The first question was, how do you separate your selfishness, like how do you do karma but not worry about I'm only doing it so I have better, so God favors me. And the second thing is, like, if you're stuck in some sort of Maya jals and stuff like that, like bad habits, how how do you use
change them?
spirituality and bhakti to like break these bad habits? Like, how does it work?
So first question is basically how do we get the selfishness out of us, so that we're doing things obviously to get God's mercy. But that's fine. That's fine. If even there's a little motive there. I mean, in the Bhagavad Gita, no, in the Srimad Bhagavad Puran, which is a really phenomenal scripture, it explains that whether you want something from God, whether you don't want something from God, it doesn't matter. Pray to God. At least you're praying to God.
Right.
So even if we're selfish, pray to God. Take shelter of Him. Give me this, my dear Lord Sri Krishna. I need this. Ultimately, the beauty of God is that He'll only give it to you if He thinks it's good for you. So if we don't get what we're asking for, we don't be disappointed because we know it's not good for us.
Okay.
But the ideal situation is selfless saver. Selfless saver is where you do whatever service the Lord has somehow blessed you to do without any motivation. That is so good. How do we get to that position? It takes some time. It takes when you take the I out of it, that I am doing this, then that selfishness becomes selfless, because you are just focusing on, what is required to be done, and you're not thinking, I am the doer. Your mood is, only by the mercy of the Lord is He allowing me in some capacity to assist Him. And that becomes selfless, Then we're not worried about, like yesterday, I tell you, we spent so much effort, so much money to organize this Rath Yatra. Right? It was fantastic. But in the end, it rained, and it sort of changed our sort of plan a lot. But because we know He's in charge, whatever He wants, it'll happen. We simply did our duty. And was there any disappointment? No, because ultimately rain is always good anyway. It's a blessing. It's the fact that it disrupted the program somewhat, so be it. That's the way of that's life. Whatever He wants, we'll go with what the Lord wants. There's a reason for this. It's good for us. So we accept that in that mood, In terms of bad habits, absolutely right. It can be, and when habits get ingrained into us, it can take some time. In fact, one of our acharyas says to break a habit can take about 8 years. It can take a long time and quite a lot of effort to break a bad habit. To get to develop a bad habit, it's a matter of minutes, But
Yeah.
then to break it can take a long time. It's perseverance. It's knowing that this is not going to please the Lord. It's not going to please the devotees. And it's not that I will break the habit. We take shelter of the Lord. My dear Lord, you know my weakness. And when we plead to the Lord by saying that, you know my weakness, you know how bad I am, please give me shelter. He answers that prayer. It may take a little while, but because you're earnestly and sincerely praying, we can really sincerely pray because we've got problems in this Kali Yuga. We're not all driven by, duty and honor and, like they were in the old days. So we really are in need of mercy or help. And when we approach the Lord, he knows this guy is sincere. He really does need my help. So the Lord will help. You can really, we can really pray for his guidance and help. And it's sincere, it's from the heart. We don't have to make it up because we are in that state, Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Thank you very much Shikhar for asking. So there's a question by let's see, Priyanjali. She's such an amazing child. So we can write our own destiny. Yes, absolutely. We may not be able to change some of the things that we are going to face, but we can change how we deal with those things when they come. For example, you may have a younger brother or sister. They throw a pillow at you, right? Now, you can take it in 4 different ways. The pillow hits you, you start crying, and you don't talk to your brother or sister for days. That's not a good way. Another way is it hits you, you hit it back at them. That's mode of passion. Again, perhaps not good to do that in anger. Another way is mode of goodness. You get hit and you catch it and you say, hey, see, I caught it. Please don't do that again. That's mode of goodness. But there's another way, there's a 4th way, which is where it becomes devotional. You don't just catch the pillow, you chant Hare Krishna, and you get your brother or sister to also chant Hare Krishna. See, there's so many ways you can deal with this situation. So the pillow will be thrown at you, that will come. How you deal with it is how you change your destiny. So now, does that make sense, Priyanjali?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Good question. Yes, Paraben, when it rains, it's good blessings from the Lord. It is. It's very auspicious when it rains. So, any other questions? Any other comments? Thank you so much, everybody. If there's nothing, we can stop the session now. Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Shri Krishna Chandra Bhagavan ki jai.